Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Selden. Welcome. Delighted to have you here, Bill. I'm so glad to have you. Got Dr. Bill Sommers. Bill has a long and storied career in education and working with various schools of all sorts. He's on the faculty, among other things, of Sarasota University, which I'm pleased to be one of the trustees of SU. Bill, you're going to talk to us today about manifesting joy in schools, right?
Well, absolutely. I think it's getting tougher and tougher every year.
I think that's absolutely true. Let me do a little quick housekeeping for people. This is a webinar. You can raise your hand. I can unmute you. We absolutely welcome participation from those of you in the audience. I personally hate webinars. I like seeing your faces, and I know you want to eat lunch and don't want to have us see your faces. But we're happy to hear from you. I will monitor the conversation. There is the chat. There's also Q&A. I'm not quite sure, but Clint often tells me that he prefers that people put things in the Q&A, and I frankly don't care. Long as I'll try to do my best to monitor whatever you throw at us. And without any further ado, Bill, let me hand it over to you and invite you to tell us what we ought to know and ask us the questions that we ought to think about.
Thank you very much for having me. As a 50 years in education and retired 5 times, I keep coming out of education. Um, Trying to get leadership to create schools that where people want to be at. Years ago, Art Costa, has been my mentor for over 40 years, said at a workshop, we were doing a workshop on thinking skills, habits of mind. And he looked across at dinner about 30 some years ago and he said, "Well, Bill, you're a principal." I said, "Yep." He said, "What are you doing to create a mentally stimulated environment for your staff?" And I looked at him and I said, "I have to do that too." And this is typical Art Costa. He looked at me and he said, "If you don't do it for the staff, why do you think they'll do it for kids?" So
Absolutely true.
that has stuck with me, and it's actually one of the reasons I'm still in education. I worked in a lab school where we did self-paced instruction, taught physics and math for about 5 years in the inner city. Somebody said, "You ought to be a principal." I said, "Get away from me." So my first assignment was 8 years as a disciplinarian, parking lot, and, and attendance person.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So being an old jock in high school and college, I guess that fit, but it never felt comfortable. So once I moved into curriculum and as a principal, I could have a wider impact on the culture. Um, in one of the times I came out of retirement, I was finishing a middle school, and some of the parents had me over for dinner. And on the way out, I looked at the credenza, and this book called Joy Inc. by Richard Sheridan.
Mhm.
I looked at that and I said, "Joy Inc. What's joy got to do with anything?" And he said, "Well, my wife works at a company and they're really studying it." Now, this has been 12 years ago. I couldn't stop. I read the book and I said, "I don't believe this is all happening." So I actually contacted the CEO and said, "I want to come and see this in action." So the first part of this, I'd just like to tell you some of the things I saw. And I've maintained a relationship with Rich Sheridan for over 10 years. He's working with schools. And my premise is that with all the principals, superintendents, and teachers leaving education, I think creating a mentally stimulating environment where there is psychological safety, physical safety, but psychological safety is going to be the biggest perk to attract and retain teachers. And where does that start? Starts with leaders.
Absolutely. Now, when you think about what you're describing, for me at least, I start thinking of Silicon Valley and people walking around in sandals or bare feet, ping pong tables in the middle of break rooms, and people doing their work on their laptops on their stomach, and they're on a couch and,
Yeah.
popcorn until all hours of the night. That's not what you have in mind, I don't think.
Well, no, it isn't. And as I've coached principals in Montessori. Actually, I've been working as a substitute for the last 5 years in a Montessori school. My grandson has attended Montessori schools. And so, if you really study what Maria Montessori and a lot of those things that they've implemented in schools, it is not only pattern recognition, but it's engagement. It's how do you get the manipulatives and get people doing things rather than just sitting on an iPhone or a computer. And so that's one of the things that being an old science teacher, I want kids doing something, see how it works, make some assumptions, make a hypothesis, test it out, see if it works. So back in the 1970, when I was teaching physics, I show up and they had a stack of books of the old Dole, Metcalf, and Williams physics. Let me emphasize Dole. It was read the book, do the problems at the back, and you're going to get a physics credit.
Yeah,
So
I remember that series.
yeah, so I said, load up your stuff. We're going down 4 blocks to a major intersection. And I said, why did some of those cars make it through the yellow light and some didn't? Well, I don't know. I said, you're going to drive, aren't you? How are you going to know whether you can make it or not? So again, making it relevant to their lives, and then I could back into time, distance relationships, velocity, acceleration, etc. So again, hook with real life experience. And I think all this is about context. So let me describe a few things I saw Rich Sheridan and Menlo Innovations in Ann Arbor, Michigan put into play. One of their rules is they don't use email. They are a software development company and they don't use email. The answer is if you want to talk to someone, get up and go talk to them because your conversation comes with pre-installed vocal cords, facial expressions, intonation, and all kinds of body language that can give you all kinds of information rather than just in an email, which you can't read. Another thing, they work in two-member teams. You get two members, you get one computer. You have to collaborate. If if you're not going to collaborate, you can't work here because they want two people looking at whatever the software development is as well. Um, I said, Rich, how do you hire people? He said, number one, do they play well with others? If they don't play well with others, they can be the smartest person on the planet. We don't want them here because
Yep.
you got to work on a team. You got to work with someone, and you have to communicate to the customer what is it that you want, and can we deliver it? Now think about that in schools. Can we deliver what the student wants? Where is their passion? I have found with career tech and a lot of other things, once you identify the kid's passion, motivation ceases to become a major problem because they want to know.
But you mentioned that one of the most important things. Hi, Patricia Mayer. You are on mute, but you should be able to unmute yourself. And if not, let me know, and I'm more than happy to unmute you, Patricia. I hope things are well up in Calgary. Happy to have you. We have, by the way, Mohammed with us from Algeria. So we got an interesting group. So you started to say, Bill, that one of the things that people really want to know first is that they're safe, emotionally safe, physically safe. And so many people in education feel exhausted and unseen and unheard. Um, I one of the things I always notice is that I really want to start by welcoming every new faculty member, every single person in the community, because often we treat teachers like they're different from the secretary and the janitor and the assistants. To me, a human is a human. They all are a circle of equals, and it's not that they all have the same job responsibility, but they're all people. We got to all work together, and that means we got to know each other. We got to like each other. We got to have a relationship.
Well, part of it is how do you onboard people?
Yeah. How do you onboard?
how
How do
I
you on board, Bill?
well, I can tell you how I onboarded, but let me tell you how I got onboarded in 1970. Here's your key. See you in May. Don't send anybody to the office.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
I know that
onboarding.
works.
So you either survived with the kids or not. Now it's bring them in and introduce them to the faculty. Have people from the faculty talk to them ahead of time. What are their strengths? What do they like to do as a person? You know, if you want to build trust, you want to build them as a person first and a role second. So,
Absolutely.
you know, you build those things in. Matter of fact, some of the most forward-thinking companies have a really good onboarding process where they literally will have a buddy person, and we had buddies in school who would take them around, introduce them to people. Here's the
Mhm.
bathroom. Here's where you get pencils. If you want something, here's the head secretary. She's the gatekeeper. Don't make her mad. And the head custodian is also key. And is staff part of that? Not just teachers, not just the principal. Matter of fact, when I go in as a consultant, I look and say, if I can find the principal in the office, I know we're in trouble.
Bill, as I understand it, Japanese schools are really pretty darn good, even though you think of Japanese as being somewhat calm and aloof and not all that friendly. But in
Sure.
reality, I believe they spend more than 2 weeks of preparing the school, not only with each other, but with the children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How do you, well, think of there was a, how do trainers in SeaWorld get 3-ton whales to jump through flaming hoops?
I don't know. How do they get
Well, they
killer
didn't.
whales to jump through hoops?
Yeah. Well, you don't find flaming hoops out in the ocean. So here's what they said. Here's two things. Number one, they get in the water and play with them. First, they need to know that the trainer means them no harm. Number two, reward them for doing something right.
Yeah.
You don't beat them up if they miss the test scores. I mean, we're in a situation now where test scores are defining people, and it's stupid. It's just ridiculous. And that was set up in the 80s, trying to explain why the economy went down. And we haven't gotten off our back in many ways. So obviously, Montessori does a better job than a lot of public schools that are really under stress, but all schools are in stress.
Yeah. By the way, I need to tell you that your friend Lydia is let me see, I'm pronouncing it right. Lydia is a Zatopek down in Houston says hi. And by
Yeah.
the way, Lydia, if we can always unmute you. Just let us know if you want to be heard.
Well, hi Lydia. It's always good to see you. And I also want to say next week I think you have Stevie Ray, the improv person that's going to be, and I'm on his board now. I actually started taking improv classes as a principal because my life was improv. I never knew I
Uh,
was going to walk through the door.
I love it.
You better
I
prepare
see.
for it.
I see we also have my friend Soraya Rafat, who is in Santa Clara, is online. Again, for any of you, just to remind you, we are happy to unmute. You are welcome to talk. We love having you participate. I see Lakshmi is somewheres in Texas. Lakshmi Ramshakar. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Not, please help me. But you're all welcome. Lovey says that improv is so fun. Lots of exclamation points. Couldn't agree more. So I think that one of the things you're talking about is making time to get to know each other, and more than maybe handing people the keys at the beginning of school and say, don't come to us unless the building's on fire.
Yeah.
So
Well, keep in mind, kids do better if they like the teacher they're working with. Duh.
yeah,
That shouldn't be a real surprise, but people trust people when they know something about you. So again, I'll go back to be a person first, a role second. If they know you as a person, then they're more willing to come and ask questions. The other thing is, how do you respond when somebody asks you a question. It's not, well, that's not the right answer. Well, under what conditions might that be the right answer? Because sometimes the kids will come up with something that I hadn't even thought of. I literally, in one of the inner city schools I was principal at, would about every month sit down with my biggest game players, the kids who knew how to beat every system. And I would sit down with them and I'd say, I'm thinking about doing this. How would you beat it in 15 minutes? And they would tell me, why would I drag a staff and students and society or community through something that the kids are going to beat in 15 minutes? So again, engagement, bring them to you. I like the 12 or the 11 tradition of AA. 11, they have 12 steps, but they have 12 traditions too. The 11 tradition is be a program of attraction, not promotion. So I do a lot of leadership coaching. I don't sell coaching. I sell results. Now I use a process of coaching, but the process of coaching is not the issue. The issue is are people getting better? So let me talk to you about one of the best PLCs I've ever seen, and it's at Menlo with the book Joy Inc. I had to see this. I didn't believe it. They have like 50 people, 60 people now on everything's on rollers, desks and chairs and whatever, because they switch partners every week. And so, hey, Menlo, and they form in a circle and they go around in their teams, two people. They have a Vikings helmet, so each person grabs a horn, and you report out and say, "Here's what I'm working on. Here's what I'm learning, and here's where I could use some help." 20 minutes, and everybody has shared. And as soon as it breaks, you go to that person who says, "I was just working on that last week. Here's what I did." They share that information. It's amazing. It's amazing to see. I didn't believe it. Now, why aren't we doing that in schools? So here's
So
one. Go ahead.
good. No, go ahead, Bill. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say one more thing. You know what their mission statement at Menlo is? To end human suffering because of technology. What if we had our mission and as educators in schools is to end human suffering because of schools or learning? Wouldn't that be
Couldn't agree more. I mean, I personally believe the reason why Maria Montessori started what we call the movement was to save the world. And I
absolutely
think that most of us are doing it for two reasons. One, it feels good. I mean, sometimes it hurts. Sometimes we feel
sure.
hurt, disappointed. Like my friend Brianna up in at Little Cabin Montessori just did a video where she trashed her Montessori diploma, saying, "I thought I was a Montessori teacher, but I guess I'm not because clearly I'm not because someone told me I'm not because the sandpaper letters in my classroom were print and not cursive, and a real Montessori would only use cursive." So we can hurt each other very easily. You know, like Bill, where did you get your Montessori diploma?
Yeah,
I imagine you may not even have one. I mean, a lot
right.
of us who are school leaders don't have that experience.
Right. And I didn't get a diploma, but I kept running into it. And of course I ran into it with cognitive coaching and some other thinking skills because Maria Montessori was such a key player in terms of getting people to learn and in tough situations. So I think another thing I would suggest is in the 90s Naismith wrote an article, I think it was Megatrends 2000 or something, and he said there's technology is going to keep coming, which we're obviously there. And he said, but with high tech, we need high touch. And
Yeah.
it's, I don't care. You can talk about the three R's: relationships, relevance, and rigor. I know top people want to talk about rigor. Well, rigor your rear end off, but if you don't have relationships and relevance, you're not going anywhere with rigor. So number one, relationship. I learn from people I respect and I care about, and if I can relate it to something I'm doing, I have yet as an old math teacher, I can't get excited about a quadratic formula. It just doesn't turn me on to talk about two intercepts above curved lines. Now,
Yeah.
tell me where that might use, where I might use that. That's, what 5% of the people need calculus. I took calculus. I've never used it.
Well, it's definitely, if nothing else, it's a badge of honor and it gets you to one more step closer to that degree that somebody wants.
Yeah.
Um, I noticed that Lovey was asking, what was the third thing? Here's what I'm working on. Here's what I'm learning. The third one. And Lydia says, I think it was, here's where I think I need help. That's
Yeah.
my memory too.
Yep. Here's where I could use some help.
So my friend Gavin McCormick down in Australia, by the way, for those of you who don't know Gavin, I really encourage you, find him on I don't know if he's on YouTube. I know he's on LinkedIn. I know he's on Facebook. But Gavin is one of those wild and crazy guys that I don't know how he finds time. He goes off for 3 weeks to Tibet and helps people rebuild a library at a middle school and whatever, all kinds of crazy stuff. He one of his really big messages is kids begin to learn when they one feel safe, and secondly they really feel that you love them. Um,
Yep.
and I think that's basically what you're sharing is this idea. It's all about relationship and safety and connection and feeling that people actually are glad that you're here with me. And there's none of the put downs that you're not as good as I am. We call it a circle of equals.
Yep. Yep. Well, and when I do talks on keeping hope alive, because it's pretty doggone hard to keep hope alive with all the crap that's going on politically, et cetera. So one of the things as a leader, people always look at the leader. They're going to watch you. So when I work with a leader who says, "Well, they don't care about me; they're just worried about the kids," I said, "Bull feathers. They're watching every move you make, and if they see you as sitting in your office doing schedules and budget and never talk to kids." I've followed, I've come up, done turnarounds 5 times. I followed a couple of principals that the kids didn't even know who their principal was.
Yeah, good point. So, I love what you're saying. I think everyone who is here Uh, thank you, Lovey. Lovey is saying I'm taking notes. I'm missing some of the things periodically because this is excellent. I agree with you, Lovey. This is a great conversation, and I'm gonna go back and beat on my colleague Clint, who is not here yet. He's on a call because I really think we need to turn this into one of our Zoom meetings where we can see and hear each other really easily. So again, if any of you out there in Radio Land want to be heard, I'm a great believer in schools and in webinars, stand up and be heard rather than sit down and be quiet. But Bill, back to you. In terms of your experience, having worked in Montessori schools, universities, businesses, and you're really recommending that we look at Joy Inc., I'm sure. But can we go to kind of a pragmatic, what might it look like if you had a magic wand and you're running a school again? What would you do from, let's say, mid-June until, let's say New Year's Eve when we're all singing Old Lang Syne? What
Well,
would you do with kids, parents, and staff?
yeah, a couple of things. One is because I had so much education when I got my doctorate, they said, the University of Minnesota said, "What do you want 45 hours in?" I said, "Well, if I got the education courses, just let me get the paper and get out of here." And they said, "No, you're going to have to pay 45 hours." I ended up going over to the business school and getting a minor in industrial relations. It opened me up to all kinds of business literature of some of the most forward thinkers. So if I had to do over, number one, I would work on the meta curriculum. We don't take credit for, nor is it honored about how do you teach embracing diversity? How do you teach collaboration? How do you teach leadership? How do you teach integrity? How, all those things that are important that all the businesses want, it's not necessarily about content. And most schools are about context. So the last school I was, came out of retirement for was 60% kids of color. There was all kinds of issues as we came in there. And the principal can show leadership. You can develop leadership among the staff. But what I found is sustainability becomes when you can get student leadership. So I ended up getting student leaderships in black males, black females, Somalis, Latino, AAPI, and Gay Straight Alliance. So how do you build? And I don't know the elementary part of that, but there's ways that kids can participate. If I have two recommendations. One is do improv, but the book that really got my energy going again in 2025 is called a book called The Power of Mattering by a guy from Harvard named Mercurio. And people need to know they matter. Kids need to know they matter. It matters that you're here in school. Staff needs to know they matter. Principals, leaders need to know they matter. Parents need to know they matter. It's not about kick butt and take names, which is another Theory X management style. And I'm good at that too. But I end up, my third principal was an ex nun, and she taught me humility and humanity. And thank God Marnie showed up in my life. We just buried her 2 years ago. But anyway, um, there, it's about how do you have a core curriculum about people mattering and people are important. And once that happens, then they start saying, "Oh, I'm important, so this is something I think I'd like to learn." Matter of fact, in another kind of a private school, a bunch of hippies bought 25 acres south of Santa Cruz, Mount Madonna, and they put their own. They had an ashram, and they put their own school together. I watched the chemistry teachers start the year with, "I know what you need for college. 50% of this course is going to be what you need to be prepared for. 50% of the course is what do you want to know?" So kids were immediately in it, designing some of the curriculum and what we're going to do. So use student voice and choice. I didn't say they're running a school. It's got to be safe. I get all that. So how do we use Amy Edmondson's work on psychological safety, learned optimism by Seligman? There's a lot of stuff that we could assess, not necessarily test scores, that would tell you whether the kid is going to be a good citizen, colleague, and ready for some type of career. And I think that's what it looked like. That's why I think career tech doing things is going to be helpful.
Yeah. I'm going to circle back and try to
Sure.
tease out of you as much practical stuff as possible. But I see a couple of things that are in the chat. Mohammed has said something very interesting. And Mohammed, I'd love to know a little bit more about the work you're doing in Algeria, if it's a Montessori school or a traditional school. I mean, we have all kinds of people join us for this Thursday leadership forum. I will admit, I am the president of the Montessori Foundation, and Bill and I both share, as do many of you that I know who are online. We are Montessori educators. But the bottom line is we speak Montessori, we speak traditional, we speak parochial, public, whatever. It's all education, it's all about kids. Mohammed asked a question. Mohammed raised a really good question. He says, to what extent does this have to do with the culture that is already there when you come in as a new person, and the generation of the staff? Because in his mind, he's thinking that some people, because the year in which they were born, their lived experience might lead them to have a different attitude. My experience is that young fools turn into old fools, and any of us can change and open up and get into improv and lighten up a bit. That we can change the world. But that's
Yeah.
me. What do you think, Bill?
Well, I'll go back. Now, I haven't written this up yet, but I'm going to, using my physics background, let's look at Newton. Uh, first law of Newton was body will remain at rest unless acted upon by an outside force. So if you're a leader coming in, you're the outside force. How do you know what to tweak, where to move the ball? Well, sometimes you got to ask the people that are already there. And sometimes I will ask, what's one thing that if we could change it would make this a better place to be for students, for staff, for the parents? One thing. And you get people to tell you that, and then sometimes I put all these things up, give them 3 stickers, put your sticker on what you think is most important. Get 1 or 2 things, work on that for 6 months to a year. Don't just try to do 8 things, you'll die of 1,000 cuts. So get
Hmm.
focused and get a small win because people need to see progress. Second one is you got force is mass times acceleration. So when you think about mass, it tends to want to sit. So outside force will accelerate it. Third law is whatever you push, you're going to get it pushed back. So be ready for that. What's your repertoire to deal with people who want to push back and keep it the way it is? Because I don't want administrators in my classroom because they might find out what I'm really doing. That's
This ties in with our friend Lovey. Lovey says, wait, I'm sorry, Lovey, it's not you. Hold on, we've got a couple of other people. It keeps scrolling down. Catherine Scheideman said, how do you encourage and respect teachers or professionals who've had many new initiatives that they've seen come and go and are just basically cynical about, oh God, here's another one. What do you do with those people?
well, first of all, just assume that there is this neurotransmitter out there called PTSD. This too shall pass.
Yeah,
Was here when you got here, and I'm going to be here after you go. And
that's right.
so part of that is, do you have commitment from above, or whoever's running? You're always working above, so you have to sometimes manage up. But at the same time, if you come into the school, how do you shift the culture? Here's one of the things I do. I call it the rational inquirer. I write it on Sunday nights. Everybody gets a Sunday night or Monday. It has a reflection question to think about. It has a bunch of announcements. The science meeting is on Thursday and parent night is on Friday, whatever. All the announcements. And then I do a story for the heart and then some humor. Now that goes out every Monday. I've got schools that keep asking me for, can you give me that? I said, I only do it if I'm in, as a principal of the school. Here's another thing to think about. Indigenous cultures have survived for thousands of years. Would you agree?
Mhm.
Not one of them has a 3 ring binder full of policies. How did they train?
Po-
How did,
Policy, policy is the most worthless thing around.
yeah,
It
I
doesn't
know,
hurt to have a roadmap, but
I know.
if they're not in the head, they're in
I
the
know,
heart.
I know
They're
we got a
useless.
legal society, we got legal issues, and we have to have some guidelines.
Yep,
But let's not take the humanity out of it. So think about indigenous cultures. They survive through story and metaphor and the elders who would take the young under their wing. Isn't
yep.
that really what we want in schools?
Yes, we do. I
So
mean, to me, it's all about creating as you said, a joyful community.
I,
That's what we're about.
if you want some specifics, I'll give you maybe four examples. One is a book called Millennium: Tribal Wisdom for the Modern World. Another book is um, let's see, uh, it, it's some, it's something about native wisdom for white minds. 365 different cultures. Um, I wrote a book called A Trainer's Companion, 25 stories that can ignite learning. Actually, Lindsay and I finished a book last year called Setting the Stage. It has videos, stories, questions, quotes, etc. to do warm up when you do faculty stuff. Many of those are transferable. Um, the whole Habits of Mind with Art and Ben has all kinds of things, and you know Montessori has all kinds of strategies and stories that we can use. I really think we need cross cultural work in schools so that we can say, oh, we got that from the Somali culture, we got that from Mexican culture. Millennium, the book called Millennium, does South America, Native American, and I want to say African American cultures, stories that resonate with collaboration, etc. So how do we use stories as a kickoff point, setting the tone for what we want in that meta curriculum? Because we can, well, I remember Herb Kelleher from Southwest Airlines, he's dead now. He said, I hire for attitude. I can teach them to take tickets. Now you got to have a license to fly. You got to have you got to have a license to be a stewardess. I get, you know, but most things, and you'd have to have a license for teaching. But for most things, to hire for attitude, you can teach them the ways of the forest. I, as a scheduler, once I put up an African proverb on top of my door. It says, "Never teach the ways of the forest to an old gorilla." And so, as the kids were coming in, they're looking at that, going, "Oh God, here's the old gorilla there." Here's another African proverb that's close to my heart. Not learning is bad. Not wanting to learn is worse.
That's right. We have a number of comments coming in. Christy Martinez says, how do you deal with a team of teachers who are constantly negative?
You get into their classroom and give them feedback.
Yeah, that's true. What they
And
really want to know is that you see them and you know them and that you may actually have something that helps them get their job done.
absolutely. And at some point, I always go on a continuum like a dashboard. I'll
Mhm.
start out with a reflective model. If that doesn't work, we'll ratchet it up to, I want to talk about some data. How do you know that you're making progress? I had a teacher who he would give D's and F's to 80% of his class. And I had a conference with him. I said, "So you think you're doing a good job?" He said, "Yes." I said, "What would make a difference?" He said, "Give me smarter kids." That means he has no efficacy, and he was toast in my mind. So I can get you got it. Anytime you go to court, what did you do to try to change it? So if you don't have the courage to get in and mess around in the classroom and confront inappropriate behavior, then I don't think you can be a leader. You got to be able to do the hard stuff as well as I've only taken 4 teachers out in 40 years before the end of the year. Now, it doesn't happen often, but I've even had union presidents in my building who came in and said it's about time somebody did something about this because no, she isn't doing me any favors because I have to defend. So, but sometimes you got to have the courage. I always say Abraham Lincoln said, "I might go slow, but I don't back up."
That's great. I think that one of the things that we know is that the school is really made of people. It's one of my
Yep.
sayings. We focus on the buildings and the resources and how many labs, how many books in the library, but it's really all about people. And you can, if you have the right group of people, you can do amazing things with relatively few resources in third world countries. And you can have all the wealth in the world. If you're not on the same
Right.
page, if there is not a desire to be together, if you're not pulling the same direction with a common culture, there's gonna be pain points or tension, which
Well,
doesn't mean it has to be perfect. Nothing in life is perfect,
right.
which means we have to talk to each other. I mean, that's what you're really saying is we need to take time to get to know each other. We need to know that each other matters. We need to clarify what's negotiable and what's not, because it's not a democracy.
Well, the
Um,
first thing I do when I'm coaching superintendents and principals, do you have courage to confront real data? If you don't have that, there's not much I can do for you, and we're probably not going to have a very long-term relationship. Number two, do you have the humility to say, I don't know, or I'm not as good as I want to be? Matter of fact, you, Reuven Feuerstein, the father of instrumental enrichment, who worked in Israel trying after the war, wrote a book called Please Don't Accept Me as I Am. So I'm saying, God, don't let Bill needs help. Tell me how you can make me better. And
yeah,
the third thing is discipline. Will you follow through? If you're not going to follow through, I had a foundation hired me to coach 12 people, 12 principals in Houston. I fired 4 of them within 3 months. And they said, well, you can't fire them. I said, the hell I can't. They're not doing anything. Why are you wasting my time and your money? So let's work with
the-
a living.
since we are here, gathered under the umbrella of the Montessori culture, so many people in Montessori believe that somehow we have to love everybody, and that everyone is different, and we have to be common ground. In other words, it's let's make nice. And I think that that's a misunderstanding of how we make peace. I mean, there's conflict in the world. Conflict doesn't mean we have to make people feel less than, or
No,
that we can't have crucial conversations.
absolutely.
Um, so helping people to understand this is what's negotiable, this is what's not. Tell
Right,
me more. I love the phrase "tell me more."
right.
I want to hear you. I want to understand what you and all is about making time to have those relationships. If you don't, if all you do is meet with your faculty once or twice a year or once a month for a half an hour and then you
Right.
lecture them, you're getting nowhere.
Don't tell me you're a leader if you're never in a classroom. How do you know what's going on?
Well, there is that too. Um, you got Lovey has asked a great question of you. So I don't know how much you're involved with toddlers, but here's what she says. This is off topic, but let's ask Bill. Do toddlers act out, throw tantrums, not want to sleep in their own room because they feel unsafe? And if you give in to their random tantrums and resistance to sleep, woo, sorry, sometimes it just goes away. And if you give in to their random tantrums and resistance to sleeping in their own room, how do you ever get them out? I hear it's not good for them long term, and it's hard for us parents to sleep with them in our bed. There's some loving.
Well, uh, one is you shine a flashlight on it, make it transparent, and say this is behavior that I cannot put up with. So now you want to change it. If you don't want to change it, then we have a different conversation. If
And if you like having toddlers in your bed, God bless you. I mean,
right,
I think sometimes we fight about stupid stuff.
right,
I'm a great believer in pick your battles. I mean, is this something we need to fight about? Do I need
right.
to be right all the time? Is this negotiable or not negotiable?
Right. And there are
The
certain
other,
things that are non-negotiable. So I've spent a lot of time because of being a principal and assistant superintendent over the years, um, dealing with conflict. So when I teach at the college, first people who I get who want to be a leader or be a principal, my first question is, how do you feel about dealing with conflict? And then I watch to see who's squirming in their seats. And I
yeah.
said, he said, well, I don't like conflict. I said, that's not what I asked you. I said, how do you feel about dealing with it? If you don't want to deal with if you don't want to deal with conflict, go sell ice cream. Because if you better put on iron underwear if you're going to be a leader, because you're going to get shot from all sides. So
No,
I'm going to
there is
stand
that.
up and say, this is what I have to have. Here's my
Yeah,
bottom line. So
there you go.
I also,
Lakshmi,
I also
go
read
ahead.
off, because I read off education, I can't say enough about reading, but knowledge is important, but it's insufficient. You got to be able to do it in real time with real people. So I just finished a book last month by a guy, I can't remember, Chris Voss. He is a hostage negotiator. So I'm preparing to help superintendents and principals because boards and communities are holding us as hostage.
Lot of this stuff going around. Lakshmi says, I think the most important qualification for a leader is not an MBA or a master's, but EQ, emotional
You
quotient.
bet.
Yep, if we're able to connect with the staff at their level, if we can ask them to go down to the children's level. So I mean, again, it's all about if people don't know you care about them, that they're people you actually care about.
Yeah.
Um,
Angelo.
eh, yep.
Well, I always think a principal, never forget what it's like to be a teacher. Teacher, never forget what it's like to be a student.
I have a very erudite comment from Mohammed. Let me see if I've got this right, Mohammed. I think the only well after air shared free is knowledge, and there is two levels through cultures and ages, and its incidents and leaders to shape student experience. That almost sounds like a koan. I mean, like a Japanese poem. Love it. He goes on to say education level and its quality, financial and material access, and these levels are different before digital and internet and before this time. What do you think?
Well, the internet is here to stay, whether I like it or not. But what I keep asking is, how do you know it's true? I don't think we
Yep.
do enough with digital ethics because then the kid says, "Well, I found it on the internet." So who's the person saying that? And it's like the research says. I said, "What research? What was the N? If the N was 8, give me a break."
Well, Kim Kardashian just went on the internet yesterday and said that the moon landing was fake. And how do I know if it was fake or not fake? All I know is I certainly don't trust her as a source.
No.
Bill, we got about 15 minutes. I'd love to, if you could, let's think together with our people online
Yeah.
about some of the practical things. I mean, I can't imagine anyone isn't hearing this and saying, yeah, we want this kind of fun and joy and a feeling of safety and closeness within our schools because we know that if our teachers are happy, our life as a head of school is going to be a lot easier. And if our teachers are happy, the odds are the parents are going to be happy and the kids are going to be happy. Everyone's going to be happy. What
Well,
can we practically do to
yeah.
work to act
Let,
on this?
let me just give you a couple of real examples from my keeping hope alive. Number one, know that bad is stronger than good. Uh, John Gottman, who wrote Why Marriages Fail and Why Marriages Succeed, said you got to have a 3-to-1 or a 5-to-1 positive to negative just to stay even. I'm not sure I did that in my marriage, but he can tell with 94% accuracy in 20 minutes whether the marriage is probably going to stay. So you got to do more positive than negative. Barbara Fredrickson, I think she's at Harvard now, says it's got to be at least a 3-to-1. And so, what goes out of your mouth? Is it positive more than negative? If it's, well, the teachers aren't doing nah, 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 that's just that dog ain't gonna hunt. So I'm gonna close my door and keep you out. So are you exuding positivity and hope? Now, that does not mean not confront negative stuff. If it's not healthy, you got to confront it and you got to deal with it. But that's just some research. That's the way you say something positive. In the last school I started Mahalo Monday. Mahalo is thank you in Hawaiian. So I pointed out the custodian who stayed after his shift to get it to pop a locker for a kid who had her coat caught in the locker and couldn't get, and she missed the bus. So she came to me and I said to my secretary, "Get in the car. We're taking her home. I'm not going to be with a 16-year-old in a car alone." I've been Maybe in 1970 I could have done that, but not. But anyway,
Yep, yep,
what
yep,
I mean is the custodian didn't have to do that, but I want to recognize him. He wouldn't. And there's great things that happen every day. Why aren't we talking about that? Another one is I do this thing on emotional anorexia. We are anorexics in terms of positive emotion. So who's the person when you were ready to quit everything? Who's the one that helped you off the ledge? Have you said thank you? And so I challenge people within 24 hours, email, call them, write them a letter. If they're deceased, write them a letter anyway. They'll know it. Within 3 days, do a second person. Within a week, do three. Start telling people. I've had people say, sitting next to each other, and turn to each other and say, "I never thanked you for such and such," and tears come down. We need to honor people who are doing the work. So investing in yourself is not selfish. It's about self-actualizing and knowing that you make a difference. And if I said anything before this, hear this. Angela Arian, who is now passed, taught me more things about humanity, and she's a Basque lady, lived in Sausalito. She said, "Stop the inner terrorism." We scare ourselves more than sometimes other people scare us. So here's the question I have. Is your self-worth stronger than your inner critic? And by God, you better surround yourself with people that can help you. So if here's another thing, some Seligman's work on learned optimism. The three P's, be aware of them. If you have a colleague or a kid or whatever, three P's. It's personal. It is me. I suck. It's pervasive. It's not one thing, it's everything. And it's never going to change. It's permanent. Personal, pervasive, and permanent. If you hear that, then everybody has a bad day. I get that. But if that is a theme, you need an intervention. You need somebody to sit down. I'm really worried about you, Charlie. I just hear everything's negative. Is there something I can do to help you support and change that? And I would ask another question. Who do you hang with? Do you hang with people who zap you and energize you? Or do you hang with people who sap you and suck you dry? Don't hang with those people. They're bad for your mental health and your physical health.
Again, I think that some of the people who are online are probably asking, wow, what do I do with this in practicality? So if you would, Bill, can we look at practical questions? For example,
Yeah.
if you had a magic wand, okay,
Yep.
and you get the unions out of the way or the overtime problems out of the way in terms of budgets, how often do you think the people, let's say we're talking about a school that's K-8 or high schools tend to have their own issues,
Yeah.
um, but typical elementary school or middle school, how often do you think the administration and the whole staff, not just the department chairs or the tenured teachers, how often do you think they ought to meet, and what should they do when they're meeting?
Well, one of the practices that I learned from Marshall Goldsmith, the number one business coach, 10 years in a row. When you get feedback, comments, positive, whatever, the only thing you say is thank you. Thank you. I like hearing that. Just accept it. That, not, oh, well, I was okay. I didn't, it would have happened anyway. No, say thank you. It's nice to hear that. And there's a great story called "And How Are the Children" from the Maasai culture. What would happen if how are the children? If we asked that of everybody every day, how are the children, Mr. Principal? Are they well? And if we kept passing that along every day, it's in one of my books called A Trainer's Companion. And how are the children? It came off of a missile at one of a talk by Patrick O'Neill in a church years ago. How are the children? How is the staff? Are they feeling well? Are they feeling connected? Do they feel that they matter? I think that's important, and we got to model it. it's getting that mojo going that you have this you you have that positive spirit of what you're doing and it's having an effect. Andy Hargraves told me once, he said, burnout isn't having too much to do, although we do have too much to do. He said, what really drives people out is giving it a yeoman's effort, doing everything you got and not seeing any results. So by saying thank you, or I do this, start dissing people, give them comments that are direct, immediate, and specific about how they made a difference in your life. So diss them.
So one of the things I'm hearing from you, Bill, is once again, it's like in a marriage. In a good marriage, one of the things you want to do is you want to let the other person know that you see them, you love them, you appreciate them, and don't think of it as quid pro quo. You were nice to me, so I'll be nice to you. You go out of your way, and Cheryl and I, Cheryl Allen's on this call, I think still. We used to say, love them to a better place. And those, you just give generously of your heart in the hope the worst that happens, they kick you in the knee or they say nasty things about you. But if you love them back, whether or not they deserve it, the worst that happens is you don't have real friends. They just air kiss you. But it doesn't hurt to try to spread goodness in the world, right?
Well, exactly. And if you deal with a lot of people who are jerks, Bob Sutton of Stanford wrote a book called The No Asshole Rule. And after 3 years, he wrote another one called The Asshole Survival Guide.
Oh, I love it.
That's a place you can
Well,
start.
one of the things I talk to in my leadership training programs is, when you first get to a school, you're going to have to slowly figure out, who in the herd is a keeper, and you wish you could clone them, and who needs to leave tomorrow, or at the best end of the year, you need to not have them back.
Right.
And who are the question marks? The people who you just don't know yet, and just assume that most of those people are really good. Some of them may not be, and you can always get divorced, but you can't come back. So you need to be thoughtful before you spook the herd. So love them to a better place, treat them with kindness, know that sometimes you just have to say goodbye. And that is sometimes one of the hardest things we do in our work. But I'm going to come back to you on this question I asked. In the perfect world, if money wasn't a problem and the unions weren't in the way, how often do you think we need to meet with our people, and how long, and what do you do with them? And we may have to have you back and talk about this more, which would be great. I'd love to have you back.
Absolutely, because there's all kinds of strategies, but it's a special ed model. You try the least restrictive and then you start ratcheting it up. And at some point they cannot or will not change, you have to leave.
Mhm.
Because Will Phelps did some research in Australia, said one bad apple can cause 40% reduction in productivity.
Absolutely. Well, I know we've got only 1 minute left, so I'm going to ask you if you would agree to come back.
Oh,
Maybe we can
absolutely.
get some more of our friends,
Yeah,
Bina and Art and some of those other cool people, and maybe Rianne Eisner will join us again. But I would love to really do a pragmatic unpack and say, in the ideal world, how often would we meet with our teachers? What do we do about the janitor? Who the heck is watching the kids unless we've sent them home half day, which is lovely, but sometimes the parents don't like that.
right, right.
For example, how many days or weeks before school do we gather the teachers, and what do we do together to get to know each other and fall in love with each other? Do we go to a sleepaway camp? What do we do? What does it look like if money isn't the problem? And we start saying, what would make this marriage wonderful again? How do we build the family?
In about 4 of the 5 schools I did turnaround, my day one with staff was bringing in Stevie Ray, doing improv and collaboration. He had people working together that never would talk to each other. I was I was blown away.
I don't know Stevie Ray, but clearly I need to
You'll
know
see him
Stevie Ray.
next week.
Oh, okay. It's Lindsay's got. I love that Lindsay is working on lining up guests. It's great. Bill,
Yeah.
Lindsay is on a plane right now. She says hi. Um, I will tell her that we need to have you back, probably with other people. And I would like to do this unpacking because I'm betting that people who are listening are saying, okay, and what does this look like other than we need to go to the classrooms, which everyone says, we need to talk nice, we need to make sure they know they're seen. But what does it really look like on a pragmatic day-to-day level? Sound good?
Absolutely. Let me close with this statement from Goethe. The things that matter most should never be at the mercy of things that matter least.
Perfect. Everyone who's there, thank you for being here. We really appreciate you. Just to remind you, whether you are able to attend live or not, we send you the link to the video when it's processed. I put them on the Montessori Foundation's YouTube channel so that anyone can see them. We also are beginning to turn these things into playbooks. It's amazing the things you can do these days with AI, where you not only transcribe a video, but you say what wisdom is in here, that how could we use it? We could turn it into an article. We can also turn it into a practical swipe these idea file type books. And so we're just to let everyone know, you're going to be hearing about a week from now about a thing that I call the circle. The circle is a leadership community. It's not meant to replace any professional organization you belong to. It's meant to be a club for those of you who like what you hear here, um, who want to be connected to the foundation and the people who are part of the Montessori Foundation community, which has led to all kinds of nice things in the world, and who want to get to know each other more. So whether you're in Algeria like Mohammed, or in Dallas, or in New York State, or wherever you are in the world, you are all welcome. And we hope that when we offer membership in the circle, you and your school will choose to join us. I think you'll get great value out of it. In the meantime, we will be here same time next week. Should you ever need help, the Montessori Foundation is a professional development community for schools. And we are here to help you all become better teacher coaches like my friend Cheryl Allen. We'd love to get to know all of you better, like Mohammed Saib Laib, who's in Algeria. Would like to know more about what you're doing. There's so many good things happening in the world. We're here to help you build the school of your dreams and to solve real problems if we can, because we can't do it alone.
Can I do one more?
Of course you can.
I've got free resources on my website, www.learningomnivores.com. There's book summaries, there's things that irritate me and I write about them. It's free.
That's great. Well, learningomnivores.com. We'll all look there. And I'm a great believer in omnivorism. So goodbye, everyone. Lovey, Mohammed, Cheryl, all of you who are here. Have a great day, and we'll see you. Namaste, my friend. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
You're welcome, Bill. Thanks for coming.
Well, Tim, I just like to freewheel it and their questions are great. So,
Well, you can tell I like freewheeling it too.
yeah, you'll enjoy Stevie.
Good. I look forward to meeting him
Well,
next week.
and we might be able to get Rich Sheridan from Joy Inc. and another one, John Saphir, who works on positive things you can tell kids that'll help them know they're smart.
I love it. And I'm
Okay.
sure I can find my friend Gavin. If I can get him up in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
we could probably get him here.
Okay.
All right, everyone. We're signing
Bye.
off. Bye-bye.